The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm your host, Nick Fury, and joining me tonight are Phil Duvall and a special guest, Daniel Carlson. It's not his first time on the podcast, but we're very excited to have him back.
Oh, Daniel, I need you
What?
to
Whoa.
just...
What?
First of all, it's good to have you back,
Hey, hi.
but I need you to hold on for just a second.
10-4. 10-4.
Just stay where you are. Don't move.
Okay.
Andy Roth.
What could we possibly have to talk? What could you possibly be interested in talking about?
Your
Andy,
shirt. It's a new shirt.
WTH. Daniel, please. You're like a child who wanders into the room halfway through a conversation. Andy and I, your father and I need to talk. You just wait there. Good. Stay on your phone for a second. Andy, what's going on with your face? You're wearing an eye patch.
Yes, for those listening, I am wearing an eye patch. I love the character of Nick Fury. I like pirates. I had a bit of a procedure done on my eye. I'm going to be fine, but it is both light sensitive and, to be honest, kind of gross to look at. So I'm saving my eye and all of your constitutions.
Listen, you don't, and Daniel, you can come back now. I think you'll agree with this.
Okay.
I don't think that Andy needs to apologize for being awesome enough to pull off wearing an eye patch during a podcast.
I agree.
Right? Like, come on, you're wearing, once everyone just gets over here's what I love about eye patches, right? Is once you get over the initial shock that someone you're talking to is wearing an eye patch,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
you will turn away for a second, and then when you turn back, oh my God, you're wearing an eye patch! Like, you're every single time.
It's true.
You look like a responsible Jewish Snake Plissken. I love it.
That is exactly what I was going for.
Yep.
Call me Andy.
Just escape from New York, but at a reasonable pace. We're not going to rush. I'm going
Right.
to find
Escape
the guy
from
when
New York,
I find
but
him.
I got to go back for some bagels.
We're gonna call
Everyone
it-
stop
we're gonna
bugging
call
me.
it, like,
Stop bugging me.
Negotiated leave taking from New York.
Indeed,
Mm.
I've got to. I forgot the
appropriate
schmear.
documentation.
I
Yeah.
need to go back.
Mhm.
Call me Andrew M. Roth, Esquire.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I like it. I was at Costco earlier today because it's a day ending in Y. I was at Costco
Picking up pearls.
and I of course ran into a friend, but not like a really good friend, just like this girl that I know through friends.
Yeah.
And she was like,
no.
Andy, what's the deal with the eye patch? And that's
You
like,
should have been like, what eye patch? Like
Yeah,
like Igor in Young Frankenstein.
what hump? Yes.
What hump?
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
no.
man.
Opportunity lost. Opportunity lost. But yeah,
Listen, there's always tomorrow.
it's true. This will still be happening tomorrow. So
How long do you have to wear the old eye patch?
let me put it this way: I'm not going to go see Iron Man 3 in IMAX 3D because
won't
this
get it.
will probably still be on my eye then.
Yeah.
Maybe not, because most of it is light sensitivity, so I might wear it in and then take it off for the movie.
Sure.
We'll see.
No, but the movie's going to be bright.
Yeah, but I still though.
But let's be honest. You're going to see Iron Man more than once.
That's true.
So you might as well just see it 2D the first time, and then as a gift to yourself when your eye finally feels better,
Yes,
ta-da! Iron Man 3, 3D, IMAX, etc., etc., etc.
indeed.
Daniel Carlson. Andy, can I
Phil.
talk to Daniel?
I encourage you to do so. Please do.
First of all,
Andy, go do
Daniel.
something. Hey there.
No, stick with us, son of Carl. Daniel, son of Carl. You're the last time you were on our show, we talked about heist movies.
We did indeed.
But we're going to talk about something really special today, and the reason we had you on, there's two reasons we had you on. One is we need money, and we hope you have some. Can we borrow
I don't.
the box? Okay.
You rolled those dice the wrong way. I'm so sorry.
All right, who was our backup guest?
Snake eyes.
No one.
No one. This was it. No. One of the reasons we had you on is because we had so much fun with you the last time that it was
Thank
time
you.
to have you back on. Just time to have you back on the, as they say in Long Beach, shizzo.
No.
It's
Let him have it. Let him have it.
Okay, I'll let you have it.
okay. Thanks. Let him go. He's on a roll. Okay. So
Germans?
the Germans? No. So the other thing is, you wrote an article that it was right after we met, and for those of you who don't know, Daniel Carlson is a writer for an online magazine called Pajiba. Why don't you tell us a little bit about Pajiba, and then I'm going to tell you about why we wanted to have you on.
Okay. Pajiba, PAJIBA.com. It's movie news, TV news, reviews, pop culture, entertainment, books, things like that, but always with sometimes a sense of humor, sometimes with a little extra seriousness, just kind of always looking for the fun or more interesting angle on things. The original tagline was scathing reviews for bitchy people, but that took us down too much of a...
And that doesn't fit you at all.
No, yeah, that took us down too much of a snarky road, and now I think our tagline is we built this city on mock and droll, something like that.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
So,
Nice.
yeah,
Well
we just
done,
like
man.
to have a good
A little
time.
bit better.
Yeah, we
A
love
little
movies
bit
and
better.
TV. We love pop culture, but I don't like to dump on stuff or snark just for the sake of it. That's VH1 material. We
Are
just
you
like having a good
familiar
time.
with the magazine? How old are you?
I'm 52.
Okay.
Just look really good. No, I turned 31 this summer.
Okay, so you and I are roughly the same age. Andy and I are
Sure.
33. Andy, you're 34, right?
I am.
Wow, you made it through the Jesus year. Good work.
Woo!
It's tough, Reggie.
Do you remember a magazine from when we were growing up called Movie Phone?
Yeah.
Or Movie Line. Movie Line.
Yeah, Movie Line was good. They're
So
online
that
now.
reminds me a little bit of Movie Line. They're still an online magazine, but they're not what they used to be. I mean, they're not on the level that they used to be. But
Right.
there was a little bit of snarky or a little bit of like edge, I should say. But
Right.
there was a genuine love for movies and a desire to kind of approach it from an offbeat angle.
Yeah, I think it's fine to have an edge and have a sense of humor and have fun with it, but when your goal is to be snarky and then you just reverse engineer the coverage, like, okay, we got to be snarky and sarcastic about this. So how are we going to fit this movie review or post into that? The focus
Right.
is on. So.
Well, no, I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
And why the name Pajiba?
It was a goofy name that the publisher and his college roommates, or college friends, I should say, used, just a made-up word. And so when he founded the website, it originally did movies and some other stuff back in 2004 when he founded it. And I joined in 2005. And as the site took off, the name stuck, and here we are.
It's a fun website. I went on it the other day and just got lost.
Yeah.
I just started having, like, in the good sense.
That'll happen.
I do a thing. Do you do this, Andy? Do you do this thing where you're like, do you use Chrome as your web browser?
I do.
So do you do the thing where you'll be looking at something, like, so for instance, you'll go on Ain't It Cool News, or you'll go on Grantland, or you'll go on one of the many websites you and I both go on.
Right.
And when you see articles you want to read, rather than clicking on them, you click open a new tab.
Yes. Yes.
And so then all of a sudden you'll have 30 tabs across.
Yes.
And then you just got to break through all of them. BuzzFeed is terrible for this. BuzzFeed, I'll just be like, oh, I'm going to be here for the next hour.
It's true.
Anyways, so the reason I bring that up, Daniel, is I went on Pajiba to look you up recently because we knew we were going to have you on the show, and I wanted to check in on you.
Oh,
and then all of a sudden, I had like 12 tabs opened up and there's a little thing on the right that says the weekly top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Great way to just kind of find some cool stuff in there. Really good stuff going on.
Awesome. I'm glad you like it. Please click on all the ads as many times as you can and refresh.
Okay. I will refresh. I can't promise that I'll click on ads.
Second
on the ads
Breakfast
every day.
Nation, you have your job.
Yeah.
Right?
Next week, Pajiba.com.
Click
Let's
on everything.
boost that revenue.
I really think, guys, I think if you like what we do here, I think you'll like definitely what Daniel does. I'm not yet going to vouch for everybody else on that website, but also I think the reviews I've read, even if I don't agree, I like. It's good writing. It's good
Mighty
writing.
kind.
Indeed.
It
Thank you,
feels
sir.
different. Anyways, so Daniel wrote a thing last year. Okay, you all remember, some of you may not know this. Some of you who joined Second Breakfast Podcast may not know that just a few months ago, I went crazy. I know, Andy says just a few months ago.
Ba-dum-bum.
And started to record every movie that I saw in the theaters or otherwise for each year of my life. There was a couple of late nights. It didn't take as long as you thought. But the reason I started doing this was I wanted to figure out what movies that were made in 2013 that I had seen, or 2012 that I had seen.
Right.
Couldn't really figure out which videos that I'd never seen before. And then I decided, since Andy and I were doing this podcast, we should keep track of what movies we're seeing when we see them, just for the sake of conversation. And I'll tell you, Andy, I don't know about you, but it's helped me a lot with our mailbags. I can use it as a reference point.
Yeah, indeed. I absolutely agree with that.
But the reason, I don't know if I ever told you this, Andy, but the reason that I did this in the first place was because I had read, and when you first had Daniel on the show, or you said we should have Daniel on the show, I was like, well, let's check this guy out. And so I was looking at through your stuff, and you wrote an article about the movies that you had seen in the year 2012.
Right.
But what he did, folks, listeners and viewers, is what Daniel did was he didn't tell them why it's different than a normal movies I saw in 2012 list.
Oh, okay. I think some other movie nerds that do this, everybody kind of does it a different way. Some folks record everything they see, even if they've seen it before. I know that when you all talk about movies you see every week, you count stuff you've seen before. But when I was in college, I started assembling a list of every movie I've ever seen, and I keep that list updated constantly. And so a couple of years ago, I started doing posts of every movie I see throughout the year, and it has to be new to me, and it has to be a movie that I watch in its entirety, and from any year. So, my list for 2012 had movies I saw that were new releases that year, or that were new to me from any year. Just as long as it was a new experience to me. Like, I don't want to count the umpteenth Saturday afternoon viewing of Die Hard, even if I watch the whole thing. But if I haven't seen it before, I'll add it to the list of total movies I've seen and for that year, because I like looking back at the end of the year and saying, what did I see from this year, from previous years? Because it's a good way to think, okay, am I seeing a variety of movies from a lot of different years or from different genres? Sometimes I think, did I see a lot of documentaries? Did I see a lot of older movies? How many movies before the year 2000 did I see? So I come up with a list of movies like that.
I mean, this, and first of all, Andy, we are not the nerdiest people out there.
That's true. Huzzah!
Right? Because I'm like, oh, I went crazy and did this, and Daniel's like, I've been doing that since college. You don't.
Welcome to the club. It's awesome.
But what I'd like everyone to know is, so what he did, folks, is he actually then said, the best movie I saw last year was, and it wasn't a movie from 2012. What was your favorite, or I'll use the term your favorite, not best. What was your favorite movie that you saw in the year 2012?
Favorite movie I saw in 2012 was The Apartment with Jack Lemmon.
Beauty.
Andy and I talk about this movie. I think we worry because we do so many shows. I sometimes worry that, Andy, that we talk about some of the same things over and over and over again.
Right.
Like that,
I am not as worried as you are.
Those word maps that people do of their like speeches, or I have friends that do sermons and then they do a word map to see how big a word is and like how many times you say it. I think if you did a word map of our shows, how big?
Tarantino, Zombie, The Apartment,
Pixar.
Yeah,
I saw a total of new to me. Last year I saw 68 movies that were new to me. I mean, that's, believe me, remarkably average and far, far below the numbers of folks who do this full time.
I think it's probably going to be much lower than what Andy pulls off this coming.
Not if we're just talking about new to me movies. That'll be above what I see in terms of new to me movies.
Andy, now that are you recording every movie you see this year?
Yes, but I'm not differentiating between new to me.
No, but all you have to do is look through the list at the end of the year and you'll know.
You're right. That's true.
I'm putting a little asterisk next to the movie that I've never seen before.
I think I'll start that. What I'm doing is when I just like put it in an email to myself, and the movies from previous years, or the movies from previous years before 2013, I'm putting in parentheses. But right. I'll start using an asterisk as well. That's really good.
And I'm down with. I mean, obviously, people make their own weird nerdy lists. There's no real rule. The only reason I don't record the ones I've seen before is because I think subconsciously when I started putting these individual annual lists together, I was more focused on what did I expose myself to this year that was new, not just what was my overall intake. Because when I started putting the master list together, a movie only obviously shows up there once. So it was more like, okay, I saw this year and I added it to the list. So at the end of the year, what did I see that got added to the master list?
Right.
How many of those were there?
Makes perfect sense.
Right.
No, that makes perfect sense. The reason that I bring up the fact that you mentioned The Apartment, aside from the fact that it's a movie that Andy and I talk about a lot, we talk about it a lot as a classic comedy, right. As a classic romantic comedy, as an example of a comedy that won an Oscar for Best Film, as an example of why Jack Lemmon's so special, as an example of what's so great about Billy Wilder.
Yeah.
Oh,
as an example,
it's amazing. Oh.
I was watching the other day, and don't get me started as to why I would be watching this, but I was watching Cameron Crowe's acceptance speech when he won the screenplay Oscar which is the only Oscar he's ever won, for Almost Famous.
Right.
And he, of course, dedicates his Oscar to, he says, the master, Billy Wilder. And we all know Billy Wilder was his hero.
Yeah.
Or if you didn't know, now you know. Billy Wilder was Cameron Crowe's hero.
Sure.
And
makes a lot of sense. I mean, if you look at it, makes perfect sense. Yeah.
But it does. But Billy Wilder, I think, is one of those guys that now people talk about, oh, he's so great, but really he's still not mentioned. Like if I say Hitchcock, everybody in the world knows what I'm talking about. If I say Orson Welles, everybody in the world knows what I'm talking about, even if they've never seen any of his movies.
Right. But
if I say Billy Wilder, people don't necessarily know.
Right.
And what I love is this brings me to a point that I think Andy and I have talked about, kind of like touched on, but I want to get into it because I think that I think that the general moviegoer is allergic to older movies. To any movie that came out either before they were born, or it can be before they were born if they happen to have seen it when they were kids. If you've seen it when you were a kid, all bets are off, right? Like if you saw a movie when you were a kid, it's part of you now. It doesn't matter.
Right. You're not perusing the paper at the age of like 4, telling your dad what you're going to go see. You might tell your dad what you're going to go see when you see like a commercial for the new Disney movie. But I was like, like mid-'80s. I think I'd like to check out Kiss of the Spider-Woman this weekend, Daddy. You know,
that's actually funny you said that, because not Kiss of the Spider-Woman, but in general, there were several times when I was just the only one who really paid attention to what was going on. So I would want to see a movie, not knowing if I should see it or not. And I'd be like, "We're gonna go see this movie," and it was not appropriate for me to see that movie. My parents got me there, and they were like,
Awesome.
So there was a movie called Dogs in Space, which was not about dogs in space at all. Or maybe it was called Space Dogs. I think it's called Dogs in Space.
Still not about space dogs?
Not at all. But I thought it was. So I took my babysitter. I convinced my babysitter to take me to see this. And about 10 minutes into the movie, it was like about homeless dudes and peeing in cans or something in New York. And he was like, "We got to go. We are going." And we walked from that theater to the next theater over, which was, and I'm not kidding you, a movie called My Life as a Dog. Another movie with the word dog in the title that's not about dogs.
Right.
How is this a time in American history?
Right.
Which was apparently a really classic movie, but I was not understanding it. It was a foreign film for adults, and we were children. I was a child, and it didn't work out. So he was like, "All right, we're just leaving the movie theater. We're done with movies. This didn't work today." But I'm curious, like, why are we allergic to adult movies? Or older movies that adults watch. That, like, my dad would watch these movies that were old movies that were his generation, and I was like, "Why are you watching that?" And when I put on I watched 2 Hitchcock movies last week, but I'm a total film geek, and even I was like, "All right, I just gotta. It's black and white. I can do this. And like, I had to psych myself up before I watched it.
Right.
What's our problem? That's my question.
Film styles and everything from editing to the way they're shot to the way they're scored and presented, acted, everything changes so dramatically every few years, especially with every generation. So movies have become a lot faster paced and a lot more quickly edited is just one of the many, many reasons that just first thing came to my mind. So that's a different communication style and a different rhythm of storytelling that you're used to experiencing. Perfect example, we're all at the same age, so we were all in our late teens, early 20s when something like Fight Club came out. Yep. Very, very kinetic, lots of cuts, lots of energy, lots of fast pace. But if you're going to watch something older, black and white or not, the edits are going to be usually farther apart. It's going to be shot with a much more locked down camera. You didn't really get naturalistic lighting until the late 60s, early 70s. So before that, it was just turn on the floodlights and you're going to have a ton of weird shadows that just look like a stage play. They just look different because they were shot and performed and presented differently. And if you're not used to that communication style, it's like reading a more challenging book or a more challenging piece of music that you're not as used to. It's not that you can't get it or won't get enjoyment out of it. It just takes some practice getting used to reading a different type of medium.
See, I'll weigh in here, and Daniel, I totally agree with you. I mean, you said it, you hit it concisely, and I agree with the both of you, but from a personal preference standpoint, that drives me insane. And the reason it drives me insane.
What drives you insane? What are you saying?
People that are like, oh, because of these differences, I don't want to watch older movies.
Oh,
and I'm not I want to be very, very specific here and very explicit that what I am saying is not they should want to watch old movies. Although I
Right.
think they should because I think there are a lot of good ones. But I'm not saying they're like bad people or wrong for
Right, right.
not getting it. But I guess I'm just sort of like railing at the heavens, like why like the reason I like older movies, and the reason that, to use a phrase that Phil uses a lot when we talk about this, the reason I don't really have any buy-in, like there's not a time where I have to like psych myself up to like
Sure.
watch a Buster Keaton movie, is because I don't know that I grew up watching Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin, but I grew up watching literally every kind of movie. I mean, I saw when I was young, I saw the Star Wars movies and I saw E.T.
Right.
But before I was in high school, I was also, I mean, I was seeing things that were not age appropriate, like Animal House, like Basic Instinct. But I was also seeing things like
Well done.
It's a Wonderful Life, and
Right, yeah.
Some Like It Hot,
Yeah.
and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, and things like that. And
Right.
so, in much the same way, Phil, you said it. You said it just a couple minutes ago. You were like, "Well, it doesn't count if when you were a kid because that's just part of you." Well,
Right. So that was
so
part of you.
many. It's not just that so many movies are a part of me because I
Right.
saw them when I was young. It's that they were from varied enough times, varied enough genres, and varied enough sources that. When it came time for me to see, my first Kurosawa movie, my first Fellini movie,
Right.
or just to see more of Billy Wilder's movies, more of Capra's movies, more of Orson Welles, both as a director and as an actor, like Touch of Evil, for example.
Right.
Because I had sort of my father had sort of covered the field. The gaps were easier for me to like. I mean, you watch Touch of Evil, and it's Orson Welles and a frankly face-painted Charlton Heston in something that is
Yikes. Yeah.
this much less offensive than blackface.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's part of the time.
Tan face.
What are you gonna
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
And so that's I mean, we could talk about this or not, but that sort of drives me nuts because
Well, I mean, I think it's because there's a ton of reasons that go into that too. Part of it is exposure. Like if your parents don't expose you to certain types of movies or books or culture when you're growing up, you might not be as interested in that as you get older.
food.
And
Yeah,
even if you are interested, you might have a harder time getting into it because you don't know where to start because it's very, very daunting. I mean, think about it. Like by the time
It is very daunting.
Right.
It is
by the
very
time I
daunting
became
'cause-
like a semi-functional teenager human, where I was like, okay, starting to really fall in love with movies, really want to explore some more stuff. We're looking at like mid-teens, later teens. I'm like, okay, I'm already staring at a century of movie making from around the world,
right.
and I don't know. It's really hard to jump in and know where to start. So you have to just do a lot of research on your own. I mean, things are always evolving. So, I mean, I think early this year, for the first time I saw The Lady Vanishes, Hitchcock. Amazing movie. Amazing.
Right.
From like the late
Right.
30s, I think 38 or so.
I have
Yeah.
not seen it.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. And I think one thing that helps when you start to regularly watch old movies is you, A, start to understand how things can be presented differently, maybe slightly slower pace, slower editing, different looks, different scores, different beats. B, that helps you realize that not all old movies are automatically good just because they're old. A lot of old movies are pretty bad.
It's true.
Just like a lot of movies that come out today might be kind of bad.
Yeah.
But you aren't going to be able to understand that or really see it clearly until you start to just watch them on a more regular basis and realize, okay, this might look different than a movie I'm used to, but stuff that matters is always going to matter. Character is always going to matter.
Yeah.
Honesty in storytelling is always going to matter. Clarity of the story, the skill with which it's presented, the way it's shot and framed and scored, is still going to matter. So the more you watch these old things, the more you'll start to come to not only realize which ones are great, but how to kind of weed through and find ones and say, you know what, okay, that was an older movie, still not that good, but I kind of see what I'm looking for now.
Right. No, I think you hit on a lot of things, and I realized. So my introduction to older movies was twofold. The first wave was through my dad, who would watch whatever was black and white on television. But you can imagine, because that was the case, you just hit something on the head big time. Just because it's old doesn't mean it's
Right.
boring or bad. But on the other hand, just because it's old doesn't make it a classic.
Indeed.
And so they'd have like movie classics channels that the only thing that made them classic is that they were old as dirt.
Right.
Yeah.
And my dad would watch them all. I mean, like my dad treated Captains Courageous and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde on the same level as like Little Lord Fauntleroy. And it's just like, I know the man had terrible taste. So he introduced me to old movies, and he introduced me to the idea that without telling me, I was just like, well, this is a total crapshoot. Yeah. Like, there's no guarantee. And I saw some really boring, bad stuff. The other thing, and this is going to sound like a criticism of my dad, but I mean, whatever. It's just like my experience as a kid. Like, there was a point where he was like, well, you and I are going to start watching old movies together.
Sure.
And if you know anything about my family, and not everybody in my family, but many people in my family, discipline is not our strong suit.
Right.
So there was very little follow through. We watched 3 old movies together we rent these movies, pick them, and watch them, and it was awesome. And that was it.
Yeah.
And so there was this like, but the reason I bring that up is this. Oh, and the second one that I got into old movies was as a high school and college student when I really got into film.
Start to explore more.
And
That's right.
Andy knows this. You didn't know this, Daniel, but in college I worked and I never got to work in a video store. And we need to talk about video stores in a minute because there's a lot I want to say about that. But
cool.
I never got to work in a video store except in college I got a job at the library in the AV section, which was basically the video store at the library.
I remember this now.
And they had laser discs, and my dad had a laser disc player, so I would take 5 or 6 laser discs at a time. And like Akira Kurosawa's Dreams, I saw on Laserdisc at my dad's house, for instance.
Nice.
I watched that for a class. I feel like you and I talked about it because I watched that for a class.
You may have. I don't know that I watched it for class, but I watched it.
I think that's awesome.
In college. And that was an introduction. But here's the problem here. So in one case, it like started and ended. In the other case, I'm a college student. My introduction I watch old movies by myself.
Right.
My wife doesn't particularly want to watch them, though she is watching some of them with the AFI thing. I don't have a group of people that are like, let's sit around. I didn't have movie buddies in college. Even though Andy and I were buddies, Andy and I are closer now than we were in college. We didn't hang out and watch movies. We didn't hang out and watch movies. We did theater together. We did plays together, but we had our own little crews that we ran with. Oh yeah, no.
But I think it's even more than that, Phil. I mean, maybe it isn't for you, but like, I hung out with you not significantly less than I hung out with a bunch of other people, but I can't think of anybody in college that what I do with this person is largely sit and watch a movie, or even
And that is a failure on your part, and mine too, for not doing that. We should have had movie friends.
It's also tough to find folks who like that thing to the degree you like it and want to explore it like you do. Like, I had friends with similar tastes in high school, but I had one really good friend in high school who was on the same movie wavelength as me. In college, that expanded to like 3 tops for 4 years. Yeah. So that's just the way it goes.
We ended up being the movie nerds in our respective groups is what happened.
Totally, yeah. I was that guy in my group. Like, there was nobody else. So
but here's the thing that I think. So for instance, now when we're recording what we're going to watch, Andy's wearing an eye patch. Now, see, it just happened. I just remembered. It's
hang on, what? Oh my god,
Andy, let's start from scratch. What are you doing?
I keep thinking of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, just with the fork and the fork.
Why does he wear a cork? From that fork?
Not Mother?
Ruprecht.
Oklahoma. What's your favorite Steve Martin movie, Daniel Carlson?
What's my favorite what movie?
Steve Martin movie.
Oh my gosh.
You just had to pick one movie that he stars in.
Well, we have to disqualify Father of the Bride Part 2 right off the bat because it's too good. It wrecks the curve. Oh my gosh. He's got so many good ones.
Sarcastic?
He is being sarcastic.
Really, really hard to pick. Obviously, you got to throw the jerk in there. Sure. I was a fan of The Lonely Guy from like 1984. That was a good one.
Right.
I have a soft spot and will defend Bowfinger because it's so absurd and perfect and stupid.
I need to see that again.
God, he's got so many great performances. I mean, I know I'm forgetting them all as soon as we're done recording this. I'm gonna remember them all, and I'll frantically email you.
Just to let you know, the two that I hoped you'd say that you didn't were All of Me and Parenthood.
Oh yeah, I never saw All of Me
again because I think I saw it when I was a kid and it meant nothing to me. And the fact that it means so much to you makes me want to see it. For me, it's Parenthood, Roxanne, and My Blue Heaven. It's that sweet spot.
Nice.
Right.
But I love The Jerk, and I love Father of the Bride, the original. Actually, love it.
The original, like the first one with Steve Martin, or the one with Spencer Tracy.
The first was Steve Martin.
Okay, I'm not judging.
Totally
I'm just clarifying.
Totally fair
The
question.
first one with Steve Martin is cute. You have to go in and say, okay, I'm gonna watch a guy with no problems act like he's got problems for a while.
But I grew up in.
And the film is gonna underscore the legitimacy of those problems, and I just have to accept that this is a cute, sweet comedy about a guy who loves his daughter.
But I grew up in upper middle class white suburbia, and I knew a bunch of miserable people. So I get.
Yeah, but
I feel
Father
his
of the Bride is not American
pain.
Beauty. It is not a dystopic look at the way we all smother our conformity within our little white picket fences. It's a guy who owns his own company and drives a sports car to his special.
Lives in San Marino, which is like the nicest area of one of the nicest areas of LA.
Exactly.
You're right.
Yeah. So,
you're right.
And the
this
thing
is one of
is,
my biggest complaints about Nancy Meyers movies is they are all rich white people's problems. Like, really rich.
It's complicated. No, it's not complicated.
It's not complicated. Don't sleep with your ex-husband.
The thing is,
sleep with the architect who's trying to build the extra wing so you can have a bigger kitchen on your house in Santa Barbara. You crazy old lady.
Did not like that movie. The way you make Father of the Bride work is you put some distance between the storyteller and the star like that. And make the audience realize that these problems are actually really trivial. You don't sell it that well. You don't stay too close to him. And you also really got to, I think, up the stakes a little more because it's mostly just like a rich guy whining. And only rarely do you hit the meat of him really missing that daughter and that heartbreak of her growing up.
But they do hit it, and he's so good.
Oh, yeah. Like the final scenes really, really land it. But
what sticks out to me is like they could have done that and not make it, the Deer Hunter of giving your daughter away movies.
Exactly,
But because Steve Martin has that in him, like he has that in the repertoire, he could pull that off. Right. And yet for most of the movie, I think, Daniel, would you say? It doesn't matter because he does that. They don't ask him to do that.
Whatever. Yeah, when he is, I get that he's absurd. I get it. But I also have been so crazy about nothing that I have been in the grocery store ready to friggin' rip buns off of the hot dog bun thing. What are you doing? I'll tell you what I am doing. There are 10 buns, but there are only 8 hot dogs. Therefore, I am removing the excess buns.
Right. And again,
I have been there.
Steve Martin totally sells the tension and the falling apart in those moments. And there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yep.
But the parts that work the best are when they present realistically as problems, those universal problems we all deal with, which is family conflict, strife, growing up, that sense of change, that sense of loss that's inevitable of watching your kid become an independent person and move away. When it's a rich guy going to meet his future son-in-law's even richer parents, you don't care. There's no... The stakes
true.
just drop.
They're richer, and you're like, oh, that's terrible. He's so
much. Like, and the thing is, they all like. Steve Martin
make it seem like it's a big deal.
Yeah, Steve Martin's character and his wife, although he's neurotic and they bicker, have a pretty solid marriage. The in-laws have a very solid relationship. The kids have a really standard cold feet relationship. Nobody's really in trouble there.
I don't like this conversation because it's making it sound like there's anything wrong with Father of the Bride, and I'd also like.
It's actually it's an adorable.
Let me gaslight. Can I gaslight this and just say, how have we not mentioned Three Amigos? Shame on all of us.
That's not gaslighting. Gaslighting would be, there's no such movie as Father of the Bride. What are you talking about?
I'm just learning about gaslighting. Andy taught it to me last week, so forgive me if I use it incorrectly.
You're like when Joey didn't use quotes the right way.
Or the movie
When in Rome.
Role Models, where Jane Lynch is like, I know that your presence here is court mandated. Like, why did you put quotes around presence? Are you implying we're not really here?
Exactly, yeah. You know what I had for breakfast? Cocaine. You know what I had for lunch? Cocaine. What'd you have for dinner? Was it cocaine?
My point is that Three Amigos is amazing.
Oh, it's a great movie. So good.
Gotta get it. Gotta get it. Yes,
Can I tell
it's
you that when
wonderful.
I grew up, when I was growing up, I thought that it was all about Chevy Chase, and I didn't think Steve Martin was very funny in that movie as a kid, and now I watch it as an adult, and Steve Martin is just like, mwah,
Sublime.
like oh,
Yes.
but Chevy Chase still has the best line in that entire movie, in my opinion, when he's cluelessly courting the gorgeous Mexican girl, and she says, "Have you ever kissed anyone?" "Oh yes." "Would you like to kiss me?" "Oh yeah." And then he just goes on playing the guitar. She goes, and then he looks at her and he goes, "Oh, oh, you mean right now?" And she said, "Well, we could go for a walk and you could kiss me on the veranda." And he said, "No, the lips will be fine."
Yep.
But the other, go ahead.
No, please.
The other reason that I love Three Amigos and didn't get it as much as a kid as I get it now is that it was about old movies and why they go out of style and why like that.
Golly, way to bring that back in. Way to go. Good call. That was amazing.
You called them all. No, I mean,
Man.
but the whole actual premise of that movie is
Boom.
thank you. The whole actual premise of that movie is this whole kind of movie it's what the artist was trying to be, but Three Amigos is better. Should have won an Oscar. The whole idea is that there's a whole genre that just people don't care about it anymore.
Right.
And the reality is people don't care. And Andy says he's mad. They should care. And I'm like, I get it. But I think part of the problem is the only people telling you to see old movies are film snobs.
Yeah.
That's the only people. Daniel, the only people telling normal people. No one's going to say, you know what you should really see? It's not relevant. Because they're thinking, I need to see a movie. I'm going to go to the movie. Well, they used to say I'm going to go to the video store. Again, we're going to talk about that. But the idea is, like, what's out. And what they do is they mean what's out right this moment.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
exactly. Well, I mean, that's why it's
zeitgeist. What's the deal?
That's why it's not. I'm obviously not nuts about the term film snob. I think that's why it's kind of an ongoing educational thing. It's like, hey, here's an awesome movie. Here's what's good, and here's why it's good. Like, I'm not going to tell someone you should see The Lady Vanishes because it's in black and white and it's from 1938, and you should really respect your elders and eat your vegetables. I'm going to say it's a really suspenseful, funny, sexy, cool story. And it's like 90 minutes. It's totally worth your time, you know?
But I think I love that. But I think if you're not going to mention the fact that it's all that stuff, despite the fact that it was made in 1939 in black and white, because if you just said, "Hey, you should rent this movie, The Lady Vanishes," blah 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 blah, and they're like,
yeah,
okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, if it's
and then they
that
download it and they're like, wait a
well, those
minute.
discussions always come into it because if you're going to say you should see Iron Man, they'll be like, "Oh, I've heard of that." But if you say, "Hey, here's a movie that's a little older, but you should really check it out. It's an early Hitchcock. This is why it's good."
So look, I think one of the things that the three of us try to do, and again, I think this is where we match up, Daniel, is that the three of us try to talk about older things and newer things on the same level. Like it's just sort of in a way that we hope isn't too snobby. There's some snobbiness, but hopefully not to the point where we're like, when you get to the negative energy in the whole oeuvre of the Bergman series, you know, you're like, stop talking. We try not to do that.
I enjoyed Jules and Jim as much as anyone around our age possibly could, but I'm not going around recommending that movie.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like, I think the danger of, I don't know, it's one thing to say, "Oh, I haven't seen that. That's cool, I might check it out." It's another to categorically say, "I don't see old movies."
Okay.
Because to me, that's like saying, "I don't listen to older music," or "I won't read a book from before 4 years ago," or "I don't like TV that isn't from like 2005 or later." Like, okay, I get it. Obviously, you are free to do that, but you're walling yourself off intentionally without taking that experiential risk. If you try something and don't like it, that's cool. You didn't like it, but you tried it. But if you preemptively decide not to do it, then you're cheating yourself.
Yes.
I once broke up with a girl because she said, "I don't like to read."
Yeah. You made the right decision.
Yeah,
you made the right decision.
No, hey, years later, I feel great about that.
Of course, yeah, that's a no-brainer.
I think something else that is playing into this thing that might keep today's audiences away from older movies is this sense that if you're going to sit down and watch an older movie, it not only has to be good, it has to be like important in some way. And so you have, excuse me, you have people. And I don't know what either of you think about this movie, but you have people recommending, for example, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, which is not a good movie. It has some good performances in it, but it is notable because there is an interracial romance. That is it. But
yeah, it's kind of stodgy and it's more symbolic than a good movie.
It's more of a movie. It's a movie of its time. So if you say what was a movie that was considered a big deal at that time and why, it's not actually entertainment.
Right.
It's like social studies.
Right, but
it's like sociology.
I mean, to be perfectly honest with that movie in particular, I think it fails on that level too, because I think everyone is eventually enlightened, except for Sidney Poitier's dad, who's just like he's like the institutionalized black man who remembers, the worst.
Sorry, I remember. Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so you watch that, or you watch my personal favorite straw man of the moment, the 400 Blows, which is just like taking medicine.
Right.
And
you keep saying that, except that taking medicine is supposed to make you better.
But it's not. Taking bad tasting medicine, and it does make you better. I am a more sort of considered and informed movie lover now that I have seen things like Jules and Jim and the 400 Blows.
Okay.
But I can't say that I enjoyed the 400 Blows or that I would ever recommend it.
I think that there's a difference sometimes between pardon me, I'll back up and clarify my statement. I think it's very, very possible to appreciate something's place in history and to actually appreciate it for its genuine artistic merit, but not feel an emotional connection to it on an entertainment level. My literary equivalent of this is Steinbeck. Just doesn't really work for me, but I'm not going to deny the importance of something like The Grapes of Wrath. See what I'm saying?
I do.
Yeah.
I do, and I think that really encapsulates how I feel.
But I also don't
about
feel like
400 Blows, for example.
I feel like there's like a certain level to which you need to pay attention to somebody, but then on some point they have to be entertaining. Like so for instance, I'm into Bob Dylan and someone goes, if you like protest music, you have to listen to Phil Oakes. I don't really like Phil Oakes. I can listen, or Phil Oakes. I don't even know how to say his last name. I think it's Oakes. It's Ochs.
Yeah,
but anyways,
I think it's Oakes.
So I listened to a couple songs and I was like, nope. So for the sake of importance, I did the due diligence.
Right.
But that's different with movies where it's almost like you have to see all these different movies to be a part of the thing. But what I'm interested in, this is what I'm interested in, right? Do you know one of the most fun things about watching old movies now for me?
What's that?
Is I know that if I watch them, that Andy and I are going to talk about them.
Right.
Right.
And that it might be that Andy and I and Daniel are going to talk about them. And then all of a sudden we're creating a movie community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you freed me up on that a little bit, Daniel, by I mean, honestly, I'm not overstating this. Like, you freed me up by being like, I'm a writer who just said my favorite movie that I saw last year came out in 1960.
Yeah.
That's helpful for me because it frees us up to be able to go back and forth. And you could do it in a way that's really like, and that's proof of the sorry state of films today. That's not the case.
No.
It's just that I listened to Fiona Apple's new album.
Right.
And then I listened to Mississippi John Hurt from 1928.
Right.
And I listened to one and then the other, and both of them have a place in my head and in my heart, right?
Yeah.
And movies are like that too, but part of it is having a community that you can talk about it with.
Yeah.
I agree. I think the easiest thing in the world also is to say, well, things are terrible now and they used to be awesome all the time. And I mean, there have always been a mix of good and crappy movies coming out. I mean, the studio system's goal was just to churn things out on a regular basis.
Yes.
With not always the best quality present in the final product. You've got the free agent system now, but it's the same thing. It's often a crapshoot. So I think one reason folks tend to say things were automatically or better or classic in these other eras was these movies have survived and come with us for 50, 60, 70 years sometimes. So of course we feel, oh, that was great. And there are some banner years and some great movies back then, but there are a ton of really bad or just mediocre, average movies that came out all the time.
Yeah.
All the time in the 30s, 40s.
Well, it's like for every
haven't
Beatles.
really Yeah, they haven't
For
survived.
every
They haven't
Beatles, there's
stuck with
10 Jerry and the Pacemakers.
exactly. So they
Hey,
haven't
Herman's
survived.
Hermits.
I
to come with
love
us.
Ferry Cross the Mersey, tough guy.
That's a good song.
There
You know
go.
what?
But the point being, like, I
let's
saw. I mean,
crystallize that sentence. I love whatever the thing Annie just said is, and then he called me tough guy. Listen, I don't want to argue with a guy in an eye patch. Hey, everybody, Annie's wearing an eye patch. You're not going to defend Jerry and the Pacemakers to me. Go ahead, Daniel. What were you going to say?
I was just saying. I mean, it's some of these things didn't survive. It didn't stick with us, so we don't even really know. I mean, we can respond to movies now, but we don't know what's going to be our classics until in the future. And we take those movies with us and see which ones stand the test of time, which ones we're still talking about. So I don't know. I sound like a broken record because I made this point a few minutes ago, but I really think just try something new. Don't preemptively say because this looks different, I'm not going to check it out.
Challenge.
Because that, to me, you're cheating yourself. And also, I'm going to not really respect your opinion. If you give something a try and say, I didn't really dig it, then we can talk about it, and I'm absolutely going to respect your opinion, and we can actually then be in dialogue about our experiences. But if you say, nah, I don't watch black and white movies, or I don't watch old things, I'm going to say, okay, can we talk about why? And if you just say you rule them out, I'm like, okay, cool. I think you're cheating yourself, and also you're saying that you're choosing willful ignorance about something, which I couldn't imagine
That's the kind of person
somebody.
that in college and high school, if they said something like that, I'm the kind of person now I'd be like, okay, I'll deal with that. I would have been like, we're not friends.
Yeah, I just think I couldn't imagine somebody. It would be like somebody very proudly saying, like, I don't listen to music that's more than a few years old. I'm like, okay, well, you're missing out on some stuff, but that's your call, I guess.
I don't like people that look different than me.
Yeah, it's like, okay, cool.
You are a
have to
movie
take
and
that
music
risk.
racist.
Yeah, you have to take that risk first. If you take the risk, then we can talk. But if not, then nothing to say.
Something that you both just started talking about that I really like is the sense that, like, and I don't want to oversell it, right? But, like, we are building a community, right? Like, just when you talk about any movie with any other person, you build a movie fan community there. And I think because the other thing that I always found daunting, and we could talk about this more when we talk about video stores, I found it daunting because I couldn't sort of wrap my brain around it when I was just walking through the aisles at Blockbuster. Was I considered myself a movie fan, and I had never seen a Fellini film. I had only seen one Kurosawa movie, and it wasn't any of the ones that he's known for.
Right.
And so when I got Netflix, I put, like, my early cue was like Fellini, Kurosawa, and
you'll kill yourself.
And some of those,
you'll shoot your eye out. Oh, too late.
Right?
Go ahead.
And some of those, that's funny. I see what you did there.
Thank you.
You know what? I'm coming for you, and you're going to see what's underneath this patch. But, like, there are Fellini movies that I didn't love. You know what I mean? And it's because of what Daniel you said earlier. You know, like, you can have an appreciation for it as an artistic work, as even as a work, what it means as a work in sort of the history of film, but not connect to it emotionally. And I saw La Dolce Vita, and it blew me away. And I saw 8.5, and it blew me away. And I saw Amarcord, and I was like, I'm kind of bored right now. But then I saw Knights of Cabiria, and I was like, there is nothing in the world I love as much as this movie.
Can I say a couple of things?
Yeah.
I want to say a couple of things. First of all, I totally get that vibe of feeling like that pressure of having to respond to a classic. But one thing I tell people, and that's freed me and that I tell people all the time is, you are not required to like any of these things. The best way to approach it is to say, okay, this movie seems to be getting a lot of respect or placement in some kind of hierarchy.
Yeah.
So I want to check it out and see what they're talking about and see why it's gotten that reputation, see how I respond to it. If you do or don't, that's totally on you. Read about it. Maybe check out another one from the same guy or the same actor, see what's going on. You're not required by law to like these things, but part of the experience and the risk is saying, okay, this is considered a major movie. Why? Another thing also that really frees me up and that I preach as much as I can is forgive yourself for not having seen all these movies.
Totally.
Because otherwise you'll feel like you came late to the party and never catch up. A really good critic, I forget who, tweeted sometime last summer. He was like, oh man, I can't believe I'm just now watching Breaking Bad. And I was like, yeah, it's a good show, but like, it would be a good show if you didn't watch it for another 10 years, you know?
This is what
you don't have to beat yourself up about it. So I think like what I was saying is, if you come in late, like I mean, I was born, and I come up and I realize, hey, there's 100 years of movies to watch, and I haven't seen some of the greats or the classics. I can't start from a place of feeling like a failure. I got to start from a place of excitement that I have all these movies to watch and I want to experience them. And it's only bad if you say I don't want to watch that because it's old or different or weird. It's only
Right.
good. It's always good if you say, hey, I've never seen that movie. It's considered a classic.
Right.
I'm going to give it a try and see what's going on.
So I think part of the thing that this gets into is you want to make sure that, like, because part of now we're getting to kind of weird film nerdom, because a lot of the people who listen to us, we have some film nerds that listen to us, but we also have regular folks that just like movies but are interested in the conversation, that they're not actually thinking to themselves, man, I came late to the party and I'm going to have to catch up. I mean, by and large, they're going, I only have so much time. What should I watch? And so what's interesting to me, on one hand, there's people like us. We feel the need to see, like I'm trying to see, I want to see every Hitchcock movie. Something that, well, probably from The Lady Vanishes Forward or from 39 Steps Forward. I don't need to see every silent movie Hitchcock made. See, even I have my limits.
Right.
But it's fine. It's fine. I have no problem with that. But people aren't thinking I need to be a completist. They're thinking, what would be fun for me to see?
Good point.
And so here's something that I think would be fun, like, figure out, right? Here's a way that you might, so find out, starting with what Daniel said, right? Okay, here are the movies that are important. Then go through and read the reviews, or one review or one snippet of them, and don't just see if they're saying it's important or beautiful or groundbreaking. Make sure they say it's fun or entertaining or hilarious or scary.
Yeah.
Because, like, important isn't enough for the average moviegoer. And so here is what I challenge, I think, for the three of us. Something we need to consider moving forward. And maybe it's a show we do, maybe it's or an episode that we do, or maybe it's just a conversation we have offline or whatever. I don't know. But how can we talk to people about, like, how can we help people pick?
I got the answer.
Not for educational purposes, but literally for fun purposes. And then we accidentally backdoor them into education.
I'm already set. I got your answer right in my pocket, like I brought it with me. First of all, tangential. I get what you're saying about important versus feeling a little stodgy, but great dramas that can make you feel like sad or moved or touched are also entertaining and good experiences. You don't always have to go for like a classic comedy. I think one thing is great is to talk to folks and say, hey, what do you like? What are some of your favorite movies? What do you like that's come out recently? What movies do you like? What do you like? And if they tell you what they like, and you say, okay, if you like that, maybe try this. What's an older or more classic movie that has some similar things? Like if they tell you what they like, and you realize, oh, you seem to like a lot of thrillers, or you seem to like a lot of comedy, or courtroom drama, or just kind of like adventure stories. You can say, okay, what's a good parallel for that? That's a little older, that has some people you might recognize. If someone really digs legal dramas, I'd say you should check out Anatomy of a Murder, things like that.
Indeed.
So it's kind of a start from what you know and what you've experienced, and then say, okay, what's like that? What can I find that's like that? What's one step away from that? And you kind of start to branch out like that, and that's just how it works.
I also think I completely and totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I think, but I was not, and Phil remained silent. I was not always as pretentious and nerdy as I am right now. It's true. But the way I got there, I mean, I described sort of the process that I went through with Fellini. But I guess I was pretentious and nerdy enough to say I want to explore Fellini, right? And I think the danger there is, and I think it's unique to older movies.
Yeah,
we're more willing to, if we see, for example, we just watched for Project Melway, we just watched Ransom. If we see a Ron Howard movie that we don't like, for whatever reason, we are more likely to go see the next Ron Howard movie than if I had seen Amarcord first for Fellini. I don't know that I would have seen any of the other movies. Now,
good point.
How did I build that list? How did I build the order? Well, because Amarcord starts with an A, right? Like that alphabetically, that might have gone first. And frankly, it's because I wasn't doing it as systematically as Phil suggested, but Phil, exactly what you said, which is don't just look for towering achievement. Look for
Yeah.
engaging, entertaining, moving. You know,
And
words
read about
like
them.
that.
Don't just.
And I wanna-
It's okay to not just jump in blind. I mean,
Right.
You know.
Yes.
Can I take issue with one thing you said, Andy?
Nope.
Okay.
Go
No.
ahead.
Oh, okay. You know, I mean this too. We joke around a lot about being pretentious or about this or that. Like, and you were like, I wasn't always pretentious and all this stuff. You weren't. But here's what I want to say. I know this is really silly, but I'm actually going to read the definition of pretentious. I actually am.
Fantastic.
Attempting to impress by affecting greater importance, talent, culture, etc. than is actually possessed. Synonym would be showy. Andy, not only were you not pretentious before, you're not pretentious now. And one thing that people need to know, I mean, you're not.
Thank you.
And one thing people need to know about you is, like, you weren't the kind of person who was like, I need to watch Fellini so I can sound important. You were the kind of person who actually fell in love with movies and then went, what do all the people who love movies say? They say that Federico Fellini is super important.
Yeah.
Well, crap, I better watch Fellini then. Now,
Right.
you happen to fall in line with a lot of the sort of great thinkers of film, and, like, you know, so you have no problem saying, like, you know, 8.5 is amazing, or, you know, Amarcord was boring, or whatever. Like, fine, but it's not pretentious at all. I mean,
Yeah,
the reality
think-
is, the thing is, if anything, it's geeky, and that is not the same thing.
You're right.
Yeah,
That is
We're
true.
jokes
geeks.
about
Like, we get
pretension.
excited and fun, and, like, we get embarrassed by the fact. What really happens, Daniel, is that Andy and
I
I
agree.
get a little bit embarrassed by how goofy we are about this stuff, and by the fact that
Dude,
I watched this Hitchcock movie by myself on the airplane and was like, I'm watching Hitchcock. Like, so
Shake
we
the
make
chains
jokes
off,
about it.
man. Jokes about pretension are often a defense mechanism from someone who is afraid of the depth of their passion. Like, it's okay to love something.
I just got
I don't-
goosebumps.
Very
I
well
don't
said.
feel like I don't feel like a pretentious jerk for loving movies, and I don't act like if you haven't seen all the movies I've seen, then you're failing because I haven't seen all the movies that I want to see yet. I love movies, and I just want to communicate that. I want to talk about their place, their cultural context,
Yep.
how they were made, what we bring to them, what they say about us, what they reflect about us, what they've done for us through time. And I want to share that love with people, and I want people to love movies and try them out too.
Now,
That's
here's the thing.
the goal.
Now, here's the thing, and this is where I think we need to be specific. And this is where I think video stores died.
Dude, that's 2 great segues in one podcast.
I wasn't going to say anything, Carlson.
I give a man a gold star. Come on, that was amazing.
All right.
Somebody's a public speaker.
Here's what's important. Well, this is what I was going to say. It's all well and good, for instance, in my line of work. It's really important, I think, to have a theological depth and to have not just a depth of knowledge, but a depth of actual practice and experience of studying relationships with God and religion and all that stuff. That's really important. If I can't communicate that to the average person in a way that gets them interested, or at least shows them that my passion is a real geeky thing that is deeply embedded in me, I'm no good. Or as the Apostle Paul would say, I'm just a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. If I can't give that to people in a way that makes sense to them. And so what I want to make sure that we do when we talk about old movies and classic movies and this movies is we want to talk about it in a way that makes people want to watch them.
Yeah.
Not in a way that makes it like, by the way, I saw this last week. You know.
And again,
And I think-
none
because the same
of
thing
us
is I-
talk like that. That's a joke
No, you're
born
right.
of. That's a defense mechanism joke.
But it's a defense mechanism joke born out of the fact that we have seen too many people like that who like the same stuff we like, but who act like that.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I have known way too many religious people. I grew up in the church. I have known way too many religious people who use their religious knowledge to go, and I know more than you, therefore you should listen to me, and isn't it great what a connection I have with the Lord?
Right.
And when you realize what crap that is, it not only turns you off of that person, but it can turn people off of an actual religious relationship too.
Yeah.
Likewise, I don't want to turn people off from old movies. So
Well,
I
then
want to
my-
talk
well, then
about
all you
old
gotta do
movies
is-
as excessively as possible.
All you got to do is not be that guy. Your focus can't be on being afraid of being roped in with that guy. You just got to not be that guy.
Well, it's not my focus, but I'm just saying I think it's one of the
Yeah,
things
yeah.
that happens.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
here's why video stores. Here's the problem with video stores. Blockbuster Video just went out of business last week.
Oh.
Blockbuster Video killed. It wasn't Netflix. It was Blockbuster Video that killed video stores. It wasn't digital streaming. It was Blockbuster Video that killed video stores. And here's why. Because Blockbuster Video, and I'm a big fan generally of capitalism and all of its faceless evil. I love it. But but the problem with Blockbuster Video is what you had was you had little video stores with people who were video crazy geeks. And you'd go there and they'd know everything. The problem was many of them were like Jack Black in High Fidelity, where they were like, "You're an idiot," and only an idiot would rent this movie. Then you'd go to Blockbuster Video. And Blockbuster Video, the biggest problem was that it got people going to those places. But did you hear that? Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's a Harley Davidson.
Nice.
Ooh.
That person's being a jerk. Anyways, so Blockbuster Video, though, the problem with Blockbuster Video is, did the people at Blockbuster Video know anything about movies?
Not
No.
usually. Yeah.
No.
It's like going to Home Depot, and they don't know a thing about tools. But they're the only places to get tools.
Right. They could tell you where something is on the shelf. But
Maybe.
they can't tell you why it merits the spot on the shelf.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, video stores, you used to go in, and I rented old movies. My buddy, one of my best friends in the world, Wes, he used to just work in the town video store, like Tarantino. And my friend Wes now works in film. And he would just sit. I mean, he saw every Hitchcock movie by the time he was 17. Because he worked in the video store.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The thing about video stores is you'd walk in and you'd mill around and something would pop out.
Yeah.
And you just, well, I guess I'm going to rent that now.
Yeah.
They don't have, but the problem with Blockbuster was not only did they not have people that didn't know anything, but they had 1,000 copies of something, and it made you think. First of all, it had it available. So in an old video store, you'd go in and you'd go, I want to see Iron Man, like right when what just came out, right? Like let's just say Avengers just came out, even though it came out a little while ago.
Yeah.
I want to go see the Avengers. I better get down to the video store. They have 2 copies, and they're both gone.
Right.
Well, I'm here. We've got to rent something.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Blockbuster, you'd go there, and there's 1,000 freaking copies of the Avengers. So you're getting it. And I get that it's good to get what you want. Hooray, America. But at the same time, if it wasn't there, you'd be like, well, we're at the video store. We're getting something. And that's how I saw so many movies I'd never seen before. That's how I saw Fearless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
my
your
favorite-
contention is that fluctuating supply at video stores would lead people to take bigger risks.
Sure.
Cool. Yeah. I remember just video stores being having a similar relationship. When I started falling in love with movies when I was a teen, I would just go and wander the racks of new releases or old stuff and just try stuff out.
Just stare at the covers.
Just
stare at the covers.
What am I checking? And the thing is, like, I found so many great movies that way, even like more modern ones, that I hadn't seen in the theater because I just hadn't. So I would catch them on tape, but then I wouldn't find people who knew about them till college or later. Like for a while, like Office Space felt like my movie because it tanked in the theaters, and I rented it. I was like, oh, that looks kind of funny, and I rented it. I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
How has no one else heard of this movie? And then when I get to college, everyone's like, oh, yeah, we've all heard of that movie. But, like, it was one of those individual experiences that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't just wandered around the video store, seen the poster, decided to try it. I'd heard nothing.
Yeah.
You know? So.
It's interesting. I grew up, I feel like the earliest video store that I remember was a Blockbuster, because there was it wasn't what it became.
Interesting.
Right. But it was, and everything that you said, Phil, that was wrong with Blockbuster was true. But I feel like, and maybe this is just the rose-colored glasses of memory, but I feel like it wasn't to the extent.
Or the rose-colored eye patches.
I see what you did there. I see what you did.
Thank you.
Hey.
Daniel, Andy's wearing an eye patch.
What?
But then, interestingly, I moved to New York, and around the same time as I got Netflix, I moved to Chelsea. Yeah. And Chelsea is a neighborhood in Manhattan that is very concerned with being a neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Like it's all about the neighborhood feel. And so there was a neighborhood video store, and I walked in there, and there was a guy who knew everything. And I was like, and there was a Blockbuster, and I would go to both places. But that isn't actually what I wanted to say. The first thing I want to say is the way that my dad and I sort of approached Blockbuster. I guess it was my dad, because I got most of the way I sort of interacted. I began interacting with movies from my father. we would go for one of those movies that they had 800 copies of, right?
Right.
Yep.
The Avengers of the day. But we would
Yep.
also look for another movie. And it had to be one that I hadn't heard of. And maybe
Right.
one that he hadn't heard of. So we would always do a new and an old. And it wasn't always old, but functionally that. And so I think, but that is not what Blockbuster was designed to have you do. It's how we
Right.
sort of gamed the system.
Right.
But that wasn't what they had you do. And
Right.
yet, and this is more lamenting the death of the video store as a concept, certainly not Blockbuster in general. But I have had a discussion with people, and they have said, well, Netflix gives you recommendations.
That's true.
But that is true. But the problem with that is I found some of my favorite movies that never would have come up with the Netflix algorithm. Like, show me something that you don't think I'd
Because
like.
Netflix doesn't know that
Right.
sometimes I picked a movie that like walked by and I was like, look at that cover.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Back when covers meant something. And this is where I risk sounding like a fuddy-duddy more than anything. But I really mean it. Like, I believe that video stores need to come back, and I'm not kidding, and record stores, because I don't believe the wave of the future is digital, although I think that's a part of it, a component, no question. Something is lost when we don't go to shared spaces with people to experience something.
Yes.
Something is lost, and this culture is becoming less and less intimate and more isolated, and we notice it, but we're structuring ourselves like to move in this direction even while we feel far away from people. It can't last. I just think it can't last. I think that there has to be something that gives. There will be entrepreneurs. There's a Tower Records. Tower Records was the best when I was a kid. They had records and videos and DVDs. Dead now. All the places that had Tower Records from when I was growing up that have closed, the buildings are sitting there empty. They're not being filled with other things. People, you could open up a record store in the same building.
That's so well said, Phil.
But we're creating that community online, like you said earlier. I mean, we are now forging those communities in different locations.
I think the value of online,
and I think it's something, but I don't think it matches. Go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry.
I think the value of online is you are not restricted to the people in your immediate vicinity.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I'll tell you what, Daniel. I probably could not list for you every movie that I own, but every movie that I own a physical DVD or Blu-ray of, if you said the name of it, I'd be like, I own that. That is not true for the movies or TV shows that I own on Amazon, for example. It just isn't true. That's not. That isn't. There is something, not just in the community from the community aspect. There is something primal about something that's tangible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm also a fan of the tangible stuff because streaming is great for convenience, but just as a presentation nerd, image and sound are better on the physical copy, and it's the thing that you own.
Matter.
No,
they matter.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so like I'm always going to prefer the best physical presentation because I don't need functioning internet to watch it. Also, nice timing. Netflix's licensing deals constantly expire and then get renewed. They just expired one today with Viacom and some other people. Like 1,800 titles just disappeared today.
Yeah.
That are no longer streaming on Netflix.
Yeah.
But
Oh my gosh.
if you owned those, then you would be able to actually experience those movies. But I think streaming is convenient and great, and I use it all the time. But in terms of actually investing in something emotionally and experiencing it in a much better presentation, physical still trumps. And that is not going to change.
And Daniel, do you know how I end almost every single conversation that Andy and I have? I go, so you should move to California. Like I say this, like literally, he lives in North Carolina. I'm here in California, and I end almost every conversation with, by the way, you should move to California.
It's true.
And part of the reason is, as much as I love the friendship that has developed online, and I appreciate what Andy has said, which is that it gives us an opportunity to have friendships. You and I, for instance, have never met in real life.
Nope.
But we've developed a friendship online and a respect. Mm-hmm. It would be different if I lived in the same town as you.
Totally.
Yeah.
and it's why you joke when you see two teenagers sitting right next to each other texting. When you joke, they're probably texting each other.
Yeah.
That's right. That's
You
right.
know.
Hey, I want to
There's-
say something about video stores that Andy reminded me of that I
Shoot.
think will thematically rope all this in a Philip Duvall-ish way.
Ooh,
Good
My
call.
dad would
good call, Carlson.
My dad was the one who introduced me to a lot of movies too, and he would take me to video stores. He would think of a movie that he wanted me to see and say, "Add that to the list," and I would rent that later. And he helped me find a lot as a good guide to some stuff that I hadn't seen when I was digging into the racks of older movies. And that kind of leader, that kind of gateway person, is what movie nerds like us love being to others when they're looking for older movies, whether
Yes.
that's like an old classic that's black and white, or just something a few years old, which, by the way, with the glut of stuff that comes out and as busy as we all are, I mean, there are movies from, geez, you guys did that podcast just a few episodes ago about, movies from like a specific year was 1990,
Yeah.
and there's some of those that's not that long ago,
Yeah.
but they're already being forgotten. So
Can I say something to you, Daniel Carlson?
what's up?
That was 23 years ago.
Yeah, it's amazing. But
Shoot yourself in the face.
I will. I'm doing that later.
So long ago.
Yeah.
So long ago.
But I mean,
Andy did.
that's
so
what we get
long
to do.
ago.
That's what we get to do as people who love movies and see stuff and love talking about them. We get to act as that gateway for other movie nerds and for friends
That's
of
right.
ours. And I mean, that's the fun of the thing,
I think we owe it to the world, nay, the galaxy,
Nice.
to think about ways to actually reinvest into tangible communities in something. I mean, like the most obvious example is not too far from you, right, Carlson? The Alamo Draft House.
Great
There's a
theater.
culture. There's a culture around the theater.
Totally,
that has-
yeah.
And things like that. In LA, they have the New Beverly Cinema, but you're not actually allowed
Beverly's
to have.
great, yeah.
I love the Beverly Cinema. I've seen many movies there actually, and now Tarantino owns it, which just proves that it's better. But that's it's there's still not a culture around the Beverly like. There's not a culture around it because it's LA, and no, they wouldn't allow that. It's not cool.
Right. It didn't. It hasn't built itself, like the culture hasn't built itself into a brand the way I can know about the Alamo Draft House, and I've never been to the Alamo Draft House.
Right,
Also,
like,
it's
like
gonna
the
be
Mondo,
hard to-
like the Mondo Art Gallery. I own 2 posters from Mondo, or 3, even
too.
though.
Right.
It's going to be really hard to build an identity around the New Beverly because building an identity around something means unironically loving it, which is hard to do in
That's
LA
my-
because it's a city.
But that's
It's a city
but that-
full of falsified
That's
identities.
what I mean. That's what I mean. Except I won't even defend LA against you, you jerk. I will just say this.
I lived there for 5 years. I know what I'm talking about.
I mean, okay, but look at you now in Houston. Where did you live when you lived in LA?
I lived in Glendale, Thousand Oaks, and Sherman Oaks.
Thousand Oaks is not LA. And I will say, so this is why you had that thing earlier where you were talking about the 818. You were an 818,
I lived all over.
but you had an 818.
Yeah, I was Sherman Oaks for 4 of my 5 years.
They put an arc
I
light
worked
in
in
Sherman.
Hollywood.
They put an arc light in Sherman Oaks. There's an arc light now in Sherman Oaks.
Like Miracle Mile.
There's an arc light in Sherman
Yeah,
Oaks.
it was there when I was there.
When did you leave
There when I
LA?
was there and I loved it.
When did you leave LA?
I moved away from I lived in LA from 2004 to 2009.
Wow. Okay. I was in LA from 2002 to 2004, and then again from 2006 to the end of 2007. I want to say this.
Dude, we probably
Beverly-
went to the ArcLight at the same time.
I never went to the Sherman Oaks one. I've only been to the Hollywood one. They never, and now there's
all
one
the
in the
time.
South Bay. It's totally possible. It's totally possible. We just look like 2 normal white guys. We didn't know we were going to know each other.
Oh, I know that guy.
Oh wait, I know that guy. I'm going to know him in the future. Well, my wife and I grew up in the same area and never met until we were adults. And I'm convinced that like one time we were in the grocery store at the same time and never knew. Like it's completely plausible, right?
Sure.
Yep.
She's in the cereal aisle and I'm over in the next aisle over. Like who knows? But what I think is Tarantino owns the Beverly now, and he is what I love. One of the reasons I keep going back to Quentin Tarantino is he's one of the most unironic people. He just heart on his sleeve loves things and is ridiculous about them. And it is one of his most endearing qualities. It really is. Tarantino does not do the irony, I'm so cool bit. He just likes things a lot, unabashedly. Daniel's quiet. He's not talking.
No, I
think that's
totally
well
agree.
said. Can I say something else that annoyed the piss out of me about Blockbuster?
Yeah.
So I had heard of this documentary that I wanted to see,
Oh boy.
and it was a This was when I was living in New York. It's a documentary about the porn star Ron Jeremy, and it was supposed like this is a really funny documentary. It's sort of an irreverent look, blah blah blah, and it actually gives some insight, and it's not just a whitewashing of
Right.
the industry, but it's also really funny.
Right.
And the Blockbuster near my apartment in Hell's Kitchen had it.
Right.
And I was like, awesome, right? So I'm over the age of 17. It's an R-rated movie. It's not NC-17 or X.
Sure.
It's an R-rated movie. I take it up. I get the DVD. I take it to my apartment, and the FBI warning goes away, and then on the black screen, yellow super titles come up and says, this title has been edited for content. And I thought it was joking. I thought they were joking.
Nope.
What?
And they had cut things out to the point where it didn't make sense. And certain things had been blurred out. Now, look, I'm not defending nudity here.
I am.
But what I'm going to say is this. When you are renting a movie that, to my recollection, is titled Porn Star, The Legend of Ron Jeremy, I am prepared to see someone's penis that is not my own.
Also, when you're a grown person renting a movie...
That's the problem with Blockbusters. They are the ones that say they do that all the time. 1 and 2, Andy, I am never prepared to see a penis that is not my own. That is, I'm
prepared all the time.
All the time.
Every single time it happens to me, I am taken aback.
Nice.
I am nonplussed.
Indeed.
I am like, well, that's not. I didn't. Okay.
But
you gotta live a little.
Blockbuster.
No, I mean, that's the definition of living a little. You know what?
Yeah.
I just learned how to put sriracha on my Asian food. Okay.
Sriracha?
Whatever. It doesn't really matter. I didn't learn how to pronounce it. I just learned how to put it on my food. Okay.
That's rooster sauce.
That's living a little. That's my definition of living a little.
Blockbuster. What I realized then, when I was just slogging my way through, because I mean, it wasn't that I rented it to see naked people. I didn't, right? I rented it to tell this story. But at the same time, you had to ask yourself, what am I missing? What else did they cut? And and that was and if it's not at Blockbuster, where am I going to find it? And so it almost what it became, and I wasn't aware of this other thing, but sort of in a more horrifying and widespread kind of circumstance or situation. It's kind of what Texas does with textbooks, right? Texas dictates what everybody gets because they order so many of them. Well, Blockbuster is ordering 800 of Something's Gotta Give. Or is that the title of the movie? Is that the title of the movie?
It is.
I don't even know.
Another Nancy Myers, uber rich people with problems.
Yes.
Movie.
So it's like,
and by the way, I enjoyed Something's Gotta Give thoroughly, but continue. It's a half hour. It's a half hour too long. It's got Diane Keaton and Jack Nicholson just being amazing.
Oh, fantastic.
Their chemistry is ridiculous. Daniel Carlson, shut your face.
But if you have someone with that amount of, to put it in economic terms, that amount of power in the marketplace, from the purely capitalistic point of view, there's just no way. There's just no way that I'm ever going to see my uncensored version of Porn Star, The Legend of Ron Jeremy.
Which is why we need to bring, well, I don't want to bring up that movie, but what you're talking about is why we need to bring independent video stores and record stores back.
I love that.
Back.
I do.
We need to bring them back. We need to be part of the revolution.
Agreed.
I think it's time for us to wrap this up.
Sure.
I'd like to wrap it up by putting you all on the spot.
All two of us.
If there was a video store today that you could go to and walk down to the video store and you could tell people they had to rent one old movie, and it has to be black and white, so you can't say Singing in the Rain.
Sure.
One old movie that they will enjoy, not for their film education, not so that they will be smarter or better. What's one old movie you just will like? Go for Daniel.
Ooh, you picked me first.
Go for Andy. Go for Andy.
I
Go for
have
Andy.
3 just off the top of my head.
Andrew.
He's a professional, Daniel.
I have 3 just off the top of my head.
I'm not.
Clearly, no. That's that we've established.
You're right. Casablanca, Treasure of the Sierra Madre, and The Third Man.
Oh, good call. I'm going to reiterate The Apartment.
Nice.
And I'm going to go with The Lady Eve, which is ridiculously sexy for 1941.
Nice.
And I'm going to go with His Girl Friday.
Nice.
Wow.
Phil?
Those are some entertaining movies.
I was definitely going to say, Andy, I was definitely going to say Casablanca was my number 1.
Sure.
My number 2 was Treasure of Sierra Madre. You ruined that for me. My number 1 is, I will pick 2 Humphrey Bogart movies because I think of all the classic film stars, I think he is the one that just is his movies are accessible by and large.
Yeah. Yep.
His movies are accessible.
Yes.
I was going to say The Maltese Falcon.
Nice.
Cool.
I would say Double Indemnity.
Oh, so good.
Yes.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes.
Oh.
And I would say for comedy, and you want to talk about rich people's problems? I've said it before, I'll say it again, Philadelphia Story.
Nice.
Great movie. Great
Nice.
movie.
Yeah.
Also,
I
Sunset Boulevard. I'm going to slip that in one. Sunset
Nice.
Boulevard.
To throw in
I
a comedy.
think the reason Billy Wilder is such a great example, Billy Wilder and John Huston were guys who made old movies that were just friggin' watchable. Let me throw another one in. Here's a Western for y'all if you like Westerns. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yes. So good.
Or this one's color, but still, Rio Bravo.
So much fun.
Broke your own rule.
Just
broke
fun.
your own rule.
You make the rules, you break the rules.
That's
son
not
of
what
Carl.
you do. That's not
I know,
what you
you're
do.
right.
The,
You're right.
uh,
Okay, Andy,
inappropriate.
You know what?
This is a podcast.
Since I didn't pick my first 3, I didn't pick a comedy.
Yes.
I think, although I cannot find fault with any of the comedies you mentioned, just to offer another one. And this, you could say, it's important in an interesting way to the history of film because it's the first comedy to win Best Picture. It Happened One Night.
Oh, so
Great
good.
one.
Now here's the only caveat I'll make to you, audience, about old comedies as opposed to some of the other old genres. To me, comedy and horror are things that have changed over time. What's scary now is scary in a different way than what was scary before. And likewise, what's funny now. So Philadelphia Story, It Happened One Night. I don't remember what other comedies we named. Some Like It Hot.
Lady Eve.
Lady Eve.
Yeah.
They are funny. But they might be funny in a way that maybe is different than you're used to. Andy and I love Buster Keaton. You just got to get your head around the fact that you're watching a silent movie, which a lot of people really, that's going to take another jump, which is why none of us mentioned silent movies just then, by the way.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. I thought about it, but I couldn't.
But I think dramas and suspense movies are actually easier to access. And I think film noir actually be super easy to access because I think film noir, Andy was saying the other day that we don't see a lot of film noir movies, but I just think that's because so much of what film noir was has now been incorporated into regular movie
That's really
making.
well said.
So I think if you watch Double Indemnity and
everything
Maltese
else.
Falcon, if you watch Double Indemnity and Maltese Falcon and Big Sleep, you're going to see movies that look more like modern movies in a very interesting way.
Yeah,
I agree.
So, anyways, I think for the sake of our people, though, I think it's very clear this conversation could go on longer than a D.W. Griffith D.W. Griffith silent. I think we could talk longer than D.W. Griffith could say silent and racist. I think we need to wrap up with the obvious conclusion that Daniel, we love having you on the show.
We really
and
do.
we will unquestionably have you back.
That's great to hear.
Keep up the good work on your writing, and we enjoy
Pajiba.com.
Also, if you want to find quick plug my stuff just directly, which is links to my reviews as well as blog posts that don't get published elsewhere, it's just Daniel W. Carlson, CarlSon.com.
Fantastic.
There we go. There we go.
You want to hear our? Do you want to hear our jingle, Daniel?
I could sing it.
I love you. Don't hold it.
Oh,
Hey,
All right, Patches, what you got?
I got nothing. Daniel,
All right.
thank you so much. This has been a blast.
thanks, y'all.
And
Thanks.
this has been another Second Breakfast podcast for our special guest Daniel Carlson, for my co-host Phil Duvall. I'm Andy Roth. We'll see you again real soon. Here's our jingle. Bye-bye.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.